Hexagram number 45. Gathering together, massing. We must not engage in self-doubt, nor in doubt of our principles. The judgment in this hexagram warns us to be prepared for discord when people congregate in groups, and to renew our weapons to meet the unforeseen. Its message is not to gather into groups, but to develop the firmness of character needed for times when we are in positions of leadership. In the following, the way of the sage, we are always leader of some group. Our responsibility is not to mother or father that group or to supervise others' behavior or their learning process, but simply to follow what is high and good in ourselves. This communicates to others through the power of inner truth and a good example. While groups may have assigned leaders, the true leadership of any group is the person who connects with others through firmness in his inner sense of truth. Such a person may be young or old, male or female. Through learning the way of the sage and receiving his help, we develop a responsibility to lead others. This requires that we accumulate a knowledge of the cosmic principles that govern life, the firmness of character to uphold them, and the ability to wait without wavering in our essential direction. By amassing these qualities of character, we accumulate the power that automatically accompanies them. We frequently receive this hexagram as a reminder that great things cannot be accomplished until we have achieved inner stability, not disturbed by ambiguous situations. Outside events no longer jar us off course, making us waver in our sense of inner truth, pause in our forward direction, or doubt the power of truth to resolve problems. We can only receive this hexagram when we feel disappointed because we have not yet achieved visible progress in our situation. We need to realize that before obvious changes can occur, invisible changes in people's psyches must take place. All things come due in time. All things come in due time. It is the way of the sage to achieve progress only by tiny steps that cannot be measured or observed by our ego. Meanwhile, we must keep our will directed forward. This is to have a correct weighting attitude, as in Hexagram 5, waiting, and it fulfills the counsel of the first line to be sincere to the end. In situations of gathering together, we are meant to bring our accumulated knowledge of inner truth to work. This happens when we remain firmly resolved during challenges and difficulties. We control inferior nourishment, ideas that weaken our will and make us vacillate. Losing our inner balance and doubting our inner sense of what is correct. Vacillation in our inner balance and in holding to our principles cause those who follow us with their inner eye to hesitate. Through having a correct attitude and conducting ourselves accordingly, we acquire the help we need from the higher power to complete our task. Asking for, receiving, and remembering this help is essential. No great task can be completed without it. After every step of progress, however small, we must renew our inner discipline. Otherwise, a growing sense of power will turn into expansive confidence and carelessness. We should also return to reticence and simplicity. Simplicity is the attribute that enables the leader. Simplicity is the attribute that enables the leader's vision and awareness to become manifested as the people's achievements. Every step of progress leads not only to our own success, but to a better world and heightened spirituality in all beings. Our smallest self-improvement is of the greatest importance in ending suffering in the world and to bettering the human condition. For how things are in the world is a reflection of the accumulated effort of human beings to follow good within themselves. Changing line number 1. If you are sincere, but not to the end, our goals must be the highest. We must be absolutely firm as to what is right and correct, and we must not vacillate. Lack of firmness causes others who would gather around us to waver. Similarly, if we look back to see if others are following us, we hold a secret doubt that following the true and the good will achieve their rescue. People will follow us only if we are free of doubt and hesitation about what is good and true. And if we continue on our path regardless of what they do, in following our path, it is inevitable that we shall be challenged by other people's egos. While our inner independence draws others to us and invigorates their spiritual potential, it also threatens their egos, making them feel unsettled about the wrong paths they have been pursuing. They also feel envious, for they sense the power of inner independence and would like such power for themselves. Their egos seek our formula or secret, believing our inner independence to be some sort of trick that can easily be emulated. They also wonder whether we can be thrown off balance and whether we can be made to doubt what we know. For if their egos can prove to their real selves that we are false, their egos will remain firmly in control. Thus they test us, either by flattery or by seduction, or by imposing themselves as a problem for us to solve, or by being aggressive. Often during these tests, we are pitted against something we do not understand. The first impulse put forward by our inferiors is to waver, questioning all we have learned. Through listening to the doubts thus aroused, our ego resumes control. Through listening to doubts thus aroused, our ego resumes control, returning us to old habits of contending, jumping to solutions, and pressing forward to create changes. We can avoid this if we recognize that we are being tested, and if we cease doubting what we have learned. Instead, we fall back on what we have known to be true and depend on it to show the way past the difficulties. I'm going to read that last paragraph here. We can avoid this if we recognize that we are being tested, and if we cease doubting what we have learned. Instead, we fall back on what we know to be true and depend on it to show the way past the difficulties. Realizing that we will be tested in this manner helps us remain resolute and firm. We accept apparent reversals and guard against allowing resoluteness to degenerate into briskness or intolerance. While we gently endure other people's inferiors, we in no way play any games they set in motion for the purpose of unbalancing us. If they have imposed themselves as a problem, we simply ignore the problem. We are obligated neither to play the game nor to solve the problem. Changing line number 2. Letting oneself be drawn. This means that we should not adopt any contrived attitudes that we will keep things in balance or that will move things along more quickly. We should not even try to keep things in balance or be afraid of any existing imbalance. We need only keep ourselves open and free to allow things to happen as they will. We neither resist attraction nor read more into it than it contains. We remain simple and innocent and thus retain our inner balance. While relationships are mending, we should not allow pride, self-pity, or other emotions from the past to cause us to structure how things should work out. We neither plot how we are to get back together, nor erect arbitrary obstacle courses that require them to do this or agree to that. We allow the creative to do the mending. Meanwhile, we keep ourselves firm in our values, independent and self-sufficient, careful to accept nothing false, and careful not to participate in any seduction. Changing line number 3. Slight humiliation. This line indicates that a person either ourselves or another would like to reunite with us, or the sage, and follow the path of the good. However, because he feels isolated and humiliated, the situation proves untenable. For the time being, therefore, it is better that he proceed with his development outside the group. In spite of being separated from those with whom he belongs, he will make satisfactory progress so long as he steadily allies himself with his higher nature, and follows the way of the sage. While we must let him find his own way, we should not regard him as a tiresome bother because of his mistakes as a beginner. We must remain open-minded and patient. When anyone seeks to join the unity of the good, he must accept the humility of starting from a decreased position. True humility is beginning of enduring change. True humility is the beginning of enduring change. Since he is a stranger in a strange country, so to speak, It is necessary for him to ally himself with the sage, the invisible universe teacher who teaches through dreams, meditations, one's inner sense of truth, and the Ching. The sage, accessible through these resources, is the center of all spiritual fellowship. If the beginner will submit himself sincerely to the sage's guidance by trusting the unknown and not pretending he already knows the way, this subjugation of the ego will guarantee his progress. It is not enough to sigh or simply to want to be a part of the unity of good or to want to make progress. We can attain goodness and progress only by submitting ourselves to being taught by the sage and by sincerely working at all self-correction and by sincerely working at self-correction. Changing line number 4. Great good fortune, because we are willing to put aside the sighing of the third line and work unselfishly for the good. Our work is successful in bringing about human unity. I'm going to begin that again. This is changing line number 4. Great good fortune, because we are willing to put aside the sighing of the third line and work unselfishly for the good. Our work is successful in bringing about human unity. This is true even though we must often proceed alone, our thoughts and actions misunderstood, there being no opening to have an influence, because we are truly unselfish and persevering in seeking the general welfare and undisturbed by how others view us. Our work becomes crowned with success, with all obstructions removed. Changing line number 5. If there are some who are not yet sincerely in the work, if there are some who are not yet sincerely in the work, the only means of dealing with people who secretly mistrust us is to maintain our inner independence. This does not mean that we should avoid, for comfort's sake, our responsibility by discarding the situation or by taking action to change it. We need only be willing to go on alone without contrived or forced attempts to persuade others of our point of view. It is natural that they be suspicious of our influence. A position of influence and inner independence always arouses envy. Envy manifested as distrust can be dismissed only through our becoming more conscientious. In time and in the face of our consistency of character, this resistance will melt away. Sometimes this line refers to our mistrust and resistance to the sage. We are not yet sincerely in the work. Changing line number 6. Lamenting and sighing. This and the preceding line sometimes refer to our relationship with the sage. In the preceding line, we may be clinging to the I Ching or to the path because we think that thus will achieve the gains we seek rather than because it shows the correct path. Restlessness and indecision in times of adversity imply that our trust is incomplete. Restlessness and indecision in times of adversity imply that our trust is incomplete. We are not yet firm in our center. If we recognize this and reach out for help, an alliance with the sage becomes possible. In this line, if this line refers to another person, we should be open-minded when he reaches toward us. We lament and sigh because of how long it takes to make enduring progress. Forgive me. We lament and sigh because of how long it takes to make enduring progress. Our childish heart still carries some resistance to the way of the sage. Desires and lamentations defeat the inner independence that ensures progress. It is important to ask for help to attain the higher understanding that will enable us to become free of these emotions. This completes hexagram number 45.